So, Aaron Rodgers aside, and I know that's a heck of a phrase, what's still missing from this roster, from this depth chart on either side of the ball, now that the bulk of free agency and the entirety of the NFL draft is behind us? Good morning to you. Good Tuesday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Steelers. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into hockey and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Penguins and Pirates in the same place that you found this. Go right ahead and do the exercise with me. Picture the Steelers offense going out for the first huddle of the first real game and tell me what you see. Tell me who the wide receivers are. Let's say that there are three of them. That's going to be DK Metcalf, George Pickens, Calvin Austin. If it's one tight end, it's Pat Freiermuth. If it's two, Darnell Washington will be out there with him. Running back, you've now obviously got a couple, but Jaylen Warren's your starter. Quarterback, well, you know who my preference is, but you also know who they're going to bring in one way or another. For today, we're setting that aside. That's the offense. That's it. Other than what we've set aside, and even then, I'd be happy to enter the season with Mason Rudolph as my starter. You don't have holes. You don't have a thing where you go, whoa, what's missing here? Other side of the ball. Right up front, you now have Cam Hayward and Keanu Benton and Derek Harmon, the first-round pick. And beyond that, depending on how a competitive camp goes, depending on how Y.A. Black performs within that competitive camp, you've got other options as well. Edge rushers, I don't have to go over those with you. Inside linebackers, Patrick Queen, Peyton Wilson, Cole Holcomb. Corners, meaning the outside corners, Joey Porter's joined now by Darius Slay. Safeties, obviously Minkah Fitzpatrick, but do not forget about Deshaun Elliott. Might have been this team's premier defensive performer in 2024, not named TJ. You find the spot yet? That's right, pal. It's slot corner. It's still slot corner. And I think there's a part of me that believes that specifically related to Mike Tomlin, that position remains the place where you put your outside corners who can't cover anymore, or even a safety who's getting a little older. But it's not something, and you can see this throughout the NFL draft, including the one that was just done. Teams don't yet point to that position very often and say, aha, slot corner. We're gonna address our need at slot corner. What they do is they just bring in corners. They hope they can play outside, and if they can't, oh well. What you have in the Steelers world is Beanie Bishop. And Beanie had his 4 picks, 2 of them, by the way, against Aaron Rodgers. And then he had a whole lot of other things that didn't go as well. Stuff that mostly coaches will notice, but stuff that is nonetheless real. Beanie legitimately needs to be a lot better than he was as a rookie. That's why Tomlin, at the NFL annual meeting in Palm Beach, Florida, 3 weeks ago, made it clear as he possibly could that Beanie was going to be up for a competition in the camp. It might be, for all we know right now, the main competition of camp. Because also in there with him will be Brandon Eccles, who's a free agent who has bounced back and forth between the outside and the slot, and who told us when he arrived as a free agent that he's equally comfortable at both, which, by the way, is always the correct answer to give. Doubles your chances of making the team. Although there is tangential evidence that he is better at the slot. The Steelers also just drafted Dante Kent out of Central Michigan. He's a 7th rounder, and when he was drafted, his position on the board said CB/PR. Now, I don't know about you, but when I see punt returner on your bio coming out of college, I'm not really thinking about how you're going to start on my defense as a rookie, but let's just throw it out there. Also, in the mix, possibly, would be Corey Trice, speaking of 7th rounders. This is something that we wouldn't and couldn't know until Latrobe, but what if he gets bounced to the inside on occasion and they see what he can do with all that height and length that he has? I'm not envisioning any additions in this area. We're only a couple days away from May, so I think this will be it. And if so, yeah, this is the one pointed question mark out of the pack. When we come back, J1Q.
This segment of Daily Shot is brought to you by our good friends at Mike's Beer Bar. They're located on Federal Street, directly across from PNC Park. Mike has more than 500 beers on tap, including from more than 50 local breweries. Stop in and say hello. Tell Mike we sent you. Mike's Beer Bar.
Today's J1Q comes from Rob, who says, DK, that stretch run was very much like a playoff gauntlet, and the Steelers came up lacking in many facets. As much as the collective fan base buried Mike Tomlin after the season, it seems from his draft weekend, his comments, and his actions that he's made some changes, especially in talking about Steelers' DNA and physicality. I'm not saying that you can change a Tiger's stripes overnight, but would you agree that Tomlin seems to have pivoted in his approach? You know, you're not the only one to express this, Rob, and I'm kind of wondering why, because I didn't really pick up on anything that Tomlin said or even that the Steelers did that was all that different, with one prominent exception, and that's that they drafted pretty much up and down the board best player available. The draft itself was always going to lend itself to defensive tackles. That's who personified this thing, especially at the top. Well, happily enough, the Steelers needed those, so they got themselves a couple. And I don't know that that's as much a Tomlin thing as it is an Andy Weidl thing. And Andy, more than anybody else in the operation, builds the big board from which everything stems. They knew they needed a running back. They got the running back at the first opportunity. I don't know how much of that is a departure from anything. And as for the Steelers' DNA, that was a line that was used both by Tomlin and Omar Khan. And even though I was in the room and they're both sitting about 8 feet away from me, I swear to you, I can't remember which of them used it first, but I believe it was Omar. If you give me a second here, I have the transcript on my desktop. Oh, no, it was Tomlin. Oh, wait, maybe it was. Here's the exact quote. Tomlin says, like Omar said, he has Steelers DNA, and they're referring to Derek Harmon. So at some point or other, it sure sounds like Omar said it first. Whatever. I'm not going to be looking for themes and signals and other possible trends that would suggest that Tomlin has learned some sort of cosmic lesson or whatever. He is exactly who he is. If you love him, you're going to keep loving him. If you don't, then you're not. To me, what he brings to the team is going to be borne out on the field, and I'm 100% sure he wouldn't disagree with me on that. He's the one that's going to have to address, a situation like the one I mentioned in the opening segment with the slot corners and injury issues and opponents and schemes and going into the stadium and winning on Sundays and everything else. This stuff, he's really involved in it. He's intensely involved in it. But my understanding of it forever has been that it's more from an input standpoint than it is from a decisive standpoint. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Steelers. And we'll be back with another one of these tomorrow.